are you doing, beloved?
Attention, attention, my black brothers. What I want y'all to do right now is take out the do-rag, the silky, tie it down. I want to see the waves glistening. If you got nappy hair, pick it. Don't let nobody discourage you.
Ariel.
Black boy.
On the other side, you got what you wanted. Hey, what? But you lost what you had. That's Princess and the Frog.
Oh, girl, my song is the Dr. Felicifer song. I don't even know what that one is called.
That
though.
is it. That's the end of it. That's
Wait,
the end of
the dark. What is it on the other
Are
side?
you ready? Transmogrification Central. Are you ready?
No, and it's funniest enough. That is one of my favorite like villains in a Disney movie.
Mm-hmm.
Just because he's like tall and lanky and just
And
like
black.
Black and voodoo and that Bruja with the
That
what?
voodoo was good. That was a good.
That when I say had a voodoo, baby. Baby. I'm from New Orleans. No, I'm from Nola, baby.
Oh, that's a good accent.
Oh, baby, I'm from New Orleans.
Oh my
I'm from
word!
I can't even do that, honey. What do y'all say? What do they say? I'm from New Orleans. I'm from the NOLA.
The 7th Ward.
I'm from the 7th Ward, baby.
Hey.
Please, I am not talking about anybody. I am just simply having a key.
Oh, have you watched? Did you watch Wendy Williams' documentary?
I have not, but I have seen a lot of snippets of it, and I have so many questions. Like, I heard that like she has like dementia now. She's like in a conservatorship, like our girl Brittany was. She doesn't look the greatest, but yeah. Have you seen it?
I didn't. I saw clips as well. I was going to try to make time to do it this week, but I have been busy doing a lot of other things. And I did see the clips, and I was just interested in the conversation on Twitter about like dementia, and also there's like this moral conversation about like how much grace or empathy should be extended to Wendy Williams.
Yeah,
and it's like it's an uneasy conversation to have, and I've mostly made a point not to have it at all.
mm-hmm.
Not because I feel like people should feel any kind of way about it, but just because it seems mostly like tacky to have in a public forum.
Is it? Because she usually talks about people in a public forum.
Right. Okay, so this is the thing, right? And I guess I'm going to choose to be tacky right now by discussing it. I think that people who are saying that like if people choose to handle her like life topics the way that she handled other people's, then they're not wrong. But I think a lot of people are trying to make the argument that compassion is more important. I don't know. Yeah. I think people get to choose how they decide to handle, how much empathy they want to extend in that case. I obviously feel like what she's going through is sad. Like that's sad. I can genuinely say across the board that it is sad that she's experiencing that, but I'm not moved in any direction. Like I'm not. I'm like if I can say that like it is a sad situation, but I don't feel sad witnessing it.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I mean I think it's also just like we know a lot of the things that our girl Wendy has said about other people's lives. And I think people ultimately are like, karma is a bitch.
But people really don't like hearing things like that. And part of me is starting to feel like people don't like the idea of there being delayed consequences to their actions. And so obviously like this is an opportunity for people to be like, well, this is a Black woman, right? So we should be rallying behind her. And that's a valid argument. And I don't blame people who are choosing to do that. But I mean, people forget that when you do things in your lifetime, like how people feel about those things is often reflected in how they respond to your downfalls or your ultimate death. And like people are completely entitled to feel that way based on the ways that you behave. So I mean, like, unfortunately the consequences of her career track and what she did has resulted in a lot of apathy from people. And I just hope that she isn't suffering too much. I do honestly feel that way, but I just don't blame people for being like, oh
yeah, I haven't really like I said, the conversations that I've briefly had about it, one of my friends like brought up the conversation of mental health in it as well. So it was very because my friend also battles and grapples with. We've talked about that on the show as well. So I think it was like a sensitive subject. But I do want to watch this documentary, but I don't. I feel like it's going to be too uncomfortable to watch somebody just in my head and what I'm seeing deteriorate. Yeah, in
Yeah, no,
front.
I
So
agree. I agree.
I'll check it out. But I hope everything, works out for Wendy and her team and her family because I know her son isn't really like her family isn't, I think, involved or like in charge of her money or something, but
Right.
I
They're
don't
not,
know.
they
Yeah.
don't have any power over what's happening to her.
Yeah. But on a
Guardianship.
lighter note, sister, oh my God, you're giving like 90s like Spice Girls with this top.
Yeah, I want to be a basic gay and wear tank tops for a while since there's some development in my chest and arm area. So this summer is going to be guns out for me.
Guns out, buns out. Yeah, you're a late
Thank
night
you.
gymmer. I just am like, girl, I watch you and I'm like, no, I commend you on being in the gym at 9 o'clock at night because,
I don't want to get up in the morning and go. I really don't. And then there's a whole
yeah.
bunch of people in the gym in the morning.
Yeah, no, yeah, I go in the middle of the day or I'll go in the afternoon right after work, like right after. So,
Because
yeah.
you go into your home. That's why.
I'm not going to my home no more. I'm going to my job. So I'm at my job and I work out at my job. We have 3 gyms. So immediately after work,
Okay, Monique.
I have 3 jobs.
You don't
I
have
have
a
3
gym?
houses.
I have 3
3.
gyms.
3 gyms. Looking for my 4th. Yeah, so I usually work out there and then go right after work. So like I'll be probably done around like 5:30, which is still early to me because I leave work around like 4:30. Sometimes I do like 4 to 5:30. So or 4:30 to 5:30. So yeah, that's that. But let's get into the show. What is up, everybody? It is your boy, Lord Devery.
And I'm Derwin King.
And welcome back to another episode of That Black Boy Joy, where we create, maintain, and hold space for Black and brown boys to be themselves and
so much more.
Sister, let's get into some banters really quick.
Yes.
Black boy banter. Okay, first of all, go ahead.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out if I wanted to discuss this because I feel like there was so much attention given to it on Twitter. So I'm just gonna speak my little bit of piece real quick and give you a chance to as well if you saw it. But there's this like librarian. His name is Michael Threets, I believe.
Hold on.
And I think the general feeling about him is that he's like this really lighthearted, kind person, encouraging people to read and making content that feels really wholesome. And I think in an age like this one where it feels like things are just like crumbling around us, people really need to latch on to something that feels wholesome. And I don't know, I shouldn't be laughing because it wasn't funny, but Mojo, have you ever seen Mojo on Twitter? Mojo Disco?
When you say Mojo, think about Mojo Jojo.
Miss Mojo.
Oh, Miss. No.
Is that better? Does that help?
Miss Mojo is what I think about is like on YouTube when it does like the top 10 TV. No. Continue,
okay, so
sister.
She's pretty popular trans woman.
Mm-hmm.
And I had actually become aware of her in like 2019, I think. I met her at the Trans Awareness Day march in DC.
Yeah.
And so she's a really entertaining person. Love her on like Instagram, and she's pretty prolific on Twitter as well. And she had quote tweeted one of his posts and was like, there's some dark energy. She accused him of having dark energy. And I don't know where she got it from. I don't really be watching his videos. Not for any particular reason. There's no reason that I'm not. I just don't. And people hated that she had done that because, again, this is someone that people see as like pure and like wholesome, and I'm sure he has his own internal struggles. But he had responded to this because people kind of blew it up. Like she tweeted it, and then people were like, "Girl, relax," and she deleted it. But then like it had just grown legs of its own and spread and just started circling around Twitter, and it forced him to respond. And he was like, if you guys are saying anything dark inside of me, it's my mental health struggles. Ooh. So then that was like they started attacking her, and it was just like, how dare y'all, you're bullying him, you're gonna push him into a dark space, and like people like y'all don't like to see anything innocent exist. And like they just started threatening her, like they were cussing that girl out, like fully attacking her. making it about her trans identity.
Ooh.
And then when people were like, hey, y'all, relax, because it really isn't giving all of that, people were like, no, fuck that and fuck y'all. And like, y'all are going to let her hide behind her identity. And there are times when people are doing that. And I don't think that this was it. It was just really interesting to see the vitriol that she received shortly after. I didn't think it was warranted. And I think that, I honestly think that people are in a state right now where they're just ready to pounce anyway.
Yeah.
But I just thought it was so weird to watch them attack this woman with such anger and hate in defense of this man who is wholesome and pure in their eyes, and not have the exact opposite interaction. Like, I feel like it would have been better to just block her or just be like, oh, that sucks or whatever. I don't know that he would have ever wanted them to attack her the way that they did.
Yeah.
And he ended up like saying, like, don't attack people for me.
Yeah.
And I just thought it was interesting the way that they kind of thrusted him on this pedestal and then attacked people for him. And I don't, and we're accusing her of cyberbullying, but then perpetrating the cyberbullying.
Yeah. It's, it's fan culture. Stan culture.
Yes.
And then also, he ultimately resigned from his job too.
He did.
Was it because of, what was that reason?
So that was kind of another thing so I'm going to tell you that this happened over a week ago. I want to say this happened maybe like 2 weeks ago now.
It's kind of still new, yeah.
From the time that she tweeted it to the time that he quit, that was probably about a week. That extended it. It went on for like 2 whole weeks. Basically, like, they were like, oh, he's quitting. He cited mental health struggles. They blamed it on her. He had been experiencing these prior to that happening. And I don't think it would be fair to put it all on that tweet or anything like that. I think, though, that people were just like, it's because of people like you. And I don't know. I just don't think that they know him like well enough to say something like that. I think people are kind of confusing the internet for like knowing people in a really just real way.
People love that. People like to grab onto things like, y'all don't know this man's life, like, and then also her life, their life. Yeah. So like, when people gravitate and like defend so hard, I'm like, ooh, this is getting kind of scary.
No, they were honestly like attacking her, and I was like, hey, I get y'all are upset, that's fine, but like, this full-on barrage of attacks is insane, and y'all have to see yourselves being insane. Like, you have to see yourselves being insane.
They don't see it, so
it was crazy. It was insane.
I'm gonna have to go look it up. I know he resigned. He was like this bubbly like librarian.
Yeah, I think like, and he's been getting a lot of media attention for that. So I don't know. I mean, I think it's good that he's aware of his own mental health and has made a decision that I hope works best for him to resign from his position in order to take care of himself. And I don't know. I would normally say that I wish and hope that we could get better at doing these things, but I actually don't think we will.
I don't think we will, girl. I don't think we will.
I really don't.
It goes back into them episodes that I think the episode before last was just like, we have this social media, like this world that like, girl, people going to champion for people and be they ride or dies and they bodyguards. So once we get rid of that, that'll be that. Wait, what brought you joy this week, by the way? We didn't even ask that.
I bought a tree.
What kind of tree?
I bought a fiddle fig leaf tree.
Girl, I don't know what the fuck that is. I know what Fig Newton bar is.
Pretty.
Is that where it come from? Is that where Fig Newtons come from? Fig trees?
I don't think so. I don't think it bears fruit. I don't think it bears fruit. It's got these like kind of like fluffy looking leaves. And I keep going to this place called Crazy Plant Bay. And I bought a peace lily plant from there. That was my first like plant that I purchased from there. And then I recently purchased this little plant behind me. I don't know if you can see it.
Ooh, I see the plants. Yeah.
And they were both in my room. And I was like, they're a little small. I want something larger. I want to get a tree. And I went back because my friend was visiting for her birthday. And I asked them how much the tree was, and it was on discount. And I was like, I think I have to get it. So like, this is what it looks like.
Let me see, star.
This is what they look like.
Oh, damn. Is that how big it is right now?
Really tall. It's to my ceiling.
How'd you get it home?
She delivered it.
Oh my god! How the fuck you get those home? For me, this one is going to be short, but my sports have started back, so My energy is really kicking my butt. So if y'all see me
Really?
yawning, I'm so sorry. I'm really, really tired. I've been going off of like fumes of sleep, but I'm gonna push through. So yesterday I went to a dance class, and that was from 7:30 to 8:30, and then immediately after I went to volleyball clinics from 9:30 to 11. So my body is like on crash mode, but I'm like
Yeah.
persevering through because I had work and all that stuff like that. And then I haven't really been able to take naps. I don't know if people notice or you notice. I don't take naps. I don't know how to really like take a nap. So everybody's been texting me like, take a nap, Dad, take a nap. I'm like, I've literally like haven't been able to take a nap. Like before this, I went to go grab dinner with some old colleagues and then no happy hour colleagues. So now like hopefully after this, I'm going to crash. But what
Child,
brought
you
me
stay
joy?
moving.
I do, and I'm like, I know. I don't have a man yet.
You think you'd take naps if you had a man?
No, I would stop doing as much as I fucking do if I had a man. You know, I'll be like, my man, y'all know, my man is telling me I gotta come home. You know, my man is telling me to come home. But nonetheless, what has brought me joy is going back into my old routines of like being physically fit and active and just seeing the relationships I've built through those. I think it's been really like amazing to see, and also my network has expanded. So I just really enjoy like being physically like active and social with people. So
Nice.
that has brought me joy.
Thank you for sharing that.
So before we go into our Black Boy Joy Spotlight, I would love for you to tell the girls what we are talking about today. I forgot to do it after we did the introduction.
Oh yeah.
So I was
No
like,
worries. So today we'll be talking about the relation of any possible relationship between truth and intuition, and ways that we can. I'd like to explore how telling ourselves like difficult and even small truths can help fortify our relationship with our intuition. Yeah.
I have so many flake pieces and like topics of conversation with this because like
Good.
I'm gonna hold off, but I want to say so much. But sister, who are we spotlighting this week's episode?
All right, so this week's Black Boy Joy Spotlight goes out to Ray Holiday. So it'll be RaeHolliday on Instagram. Ray Sean Holiday is the co-host of All Right, So Boom podcast, which is presented by Boss Up, right? Co-creator and editor of Stuff Fly People Like, and a former studio partner of Interactive One. He's also served as the fashion editor of Rock for Life, editor at large of Blue Magazine, and managing editor of Nicole Bitchy's Bitchy Life, special projects producer and host for Cassius Life, and host and beautiful team member of Hello Beautiful. So he's hosted events for Nivea, Pepsi, McDonald's, and been featured on Cash Cab, NBC's The Today Show, and Centric's Morning Cup, and has a long-standing relationship with BET. So wanted to give him a platform. I met him in Atlanta last month, and he just has this really bubbly and really nice personality. And he was just like really engaging with me at the bar, which I was like kind of trying to adjust.
Yes.
And he was just like super, super dope. I really enjoyed interacting with him. So I wanted to give him the spotlight for today.
Yes, I've listened to All Right, So Boom. So that's why I was like, oh.
Yeah.
I was like, yes. I didn't know you met him at the
BET,
award. The
Black and
BET.
Iconic Soiree.
Yeah, I didn't know you met him. I mean, you met a lot of people there, girl.
I did.
Shout out to Dr. David. It's Dr. David Johnson.
Yes, Dr. David Johnson.
Right. I was like, let me not mess up. Boss Man's, no. David Johns being awarded at that event. So I was like, yeah. But no, shout out to Ray. I love Ray's All Right, So Boom. I love that.
That's a great title. That is a perfect title for a podcast.
Yeah. Well, I mean, keep serving and slaying that Black Boy Joy. And like we always do, we will take a quick break and then we will come back and get right into the meat and potatoes, everyone. All right, everyone. And just like that, we are back. Did you ever watch Sex and the City?
Yeah, hell yeah. I watched the whole thing.
Just like that?
And the movies. Oh, yeah, I watched that too. Yes.
Okay.
I finished it too.
I was curious. I don't want to talk about it too long. I've never watched, I watched the movies, but not the shows. So.
Oh, you should absolutely watch Sex and the City. It's like Very special show. It's problematic, but it's great.
Yeah, it's white women. So let's get comfortable. So speaking of which, I'm playing trust, truth, intuition. I'm excited for this.
I wanted to take some time to talk about this and kind of figure out how this theme kind of pops up in our lives. I think that there might be a unique relationship for Black Americans and this concept of truth, and specifically how it relates to our intuition. So I wanted to look at some ways that it like pops up in our culture.
Mm-hmm.
So like, have you ever heard the phrase "tell the truth to shame the devil"?
Yes, I've heard. First of all, telling the truth. First of all, telling a lie was the biggest fucking problem in the world as a kid.
No, for real.
Okay, you told a lie, and it could have been like the littlest lie. Like your mom would be like, "Did you clean your room?" And you'd be like, "Yes," and she go in there. You will get your ass handed to you.
Tell truth, shame devil.
Okay, like you're like, did you like you? And then sometimes you don't even know that you're lying. You're just like quick. You just respond fast. Like,
well, I mean, there's usually a motivation there. So for a kid, it's just like, oh, if I say what happened, I'm going to get in trouble. So you just don't. You're like,
yeah,
I don't know. I don't know what happened. Or, yeah, I did. Because you know that there's a consequence. And then someone has to tell you, like, hey, lying is, like, not okay. My mom used to say, if you lie, you steal.
Yes. Oh God. No. Yeah. Mine was also. It was not in regards to. It was. You couldn't tell. You could never tell an adult they were lying. There was my mom, but you would never say a lie. You never tell. Like you never say it.
Yeah,
you could say that you telling the story.
Completely disrespectful to use the word lie
to an adult.
Black households as a kid. That is so true. Like we don't say that. You say telling stories.
You telling stories.
Oh my gosh, that's so true. Yeah. So it's like I feel like to some level, right, that it's been ingrained in us at this at this foundational level that lying is not okay, or like it is just like unbecoming of us. And I mean, I don't really know what it's like in white households, so I'm not even going to spend time trying to compare those. But I know every Black person I've talked to, they have some similar story. There's some like anecdote in their household, or they weren't allowed to use the word lie in their household with their elders. And I'm wondering how we carry that with us, and then the ways that like we lose it.
Yeah. I think for me, it's the fear of what's on the other end if you tell the truth. I think that oftentimes we have seen historically, and we could talk about it a little bit more as well, as with slavery and with our ancestors, there was truths that were told that ended in our deaths, lies that were made in us. I mean, lies that were said in order for us to die. So I think it's the fear of if you tell the truth, if you lie, what could come from that? Because you are afraid of ultimately the unknown on either side, because you don't know what the other person's response will be to it. And essentially, we lied a lot, or we held our heads low for safety and survival and security as Black people. So we lied for survival.
Well, right. So that's a really good point, because you think about the number of times like culturally we get a contradicting message to lie to like law enforcement or people lying.
Yeah, you never tell the police the truth.
Because it's like these systems don't exist to protect us. So telling the truth could lead to like your demise. What is your earliest memory of being discouraged from telling the truth?
I immediately think about when my sister like would do something, like break something, or we would like get into something that we wasn't supposed to, or something of that nature. Like I just know, like for me and my sister, we were always just like, we hated each other. I love my sister now, and when we would get into like fights or get into like issues and like things were damaged, we would just be like, oh fuck, like what do we need? What story do we need to come up with? What plan could we make up? So I think for me, it was immediately anything that became a conflict with me and my sister was like we had to stick together to be like, who broke this glass, or like who dropped, like I used to be like, ooh, girl, if I say I did it, she gonna beat my ass. If she say you did it, she gonna beat your ass. And we both like, it was like We also knew my parents, my mom's like, we knew how she handled things. So it was just like, girl, I don't want to get my ass whooped. So I didn't break it. So I think it was when I was a child. Yeah, I definitely think it was when me and my sister would get into like fights and like something would happen where one of us would be like severely hurt.
And how often did that pop up? And did it become customary then for you to tell your mother lies, like for the
It
two of you as a unit to
it
lie to your mother?
it came to a point where we just throw each other in the bus. Like it came to the point like, bitch, Deveja broke my arm. They did that. I'm not about to get beat because my mama always put us together. So it was if one of y'all did it, y'all both did it. And that was what I used to get annoyed by was why is that's not the truth. Like that I didn't do that. Like, why am I gonna because she my sister would say, oh, Devery did it. And I'd be like, no, Deveja did it. And she'd be like, I don't got time. Both of y'all asses getting whooped.
So your earliest memories of being discouraged from telling the truth have to do with like avoiding trouble with your mom.
Yeah, it was avoiding getting my ass whooped. I didn't. It was a very much the fear of like, oh, you about to get your ass handed to you because you did not do as I. My parents was do as I say, not as I do.
That was
like,
escaping punishment.
It was escaping punishment. It was a survival tactic. Like, what do I need to do? Because I used to always run. I would always like. I was a good. I don't want to say manipulator, but like I knew how to get myself out of something. Like, well, technically, I didn't lie if I didn't tell half the story.
I didn't lie. I don't know if it's like somehow it's like ingrained in my personality. Like I have like a really deep guilt complex. So my relationship with the truth is one that I'm like constantly working on, and I'm like always looking for opportunities to tell the truth in the safest possible way, in ways that will like minimize consequences or negative consequences. But when I think about my earliest like when there was ever something that was like you cannot tell the truth like for your safety, I think about people asking me if I was gay when I was a child. I think about like the very first lie that I had to work really hard to maintain was like, do you like boys? And then it was a constant like, no, because I was like, the answer to this is supposed to be no. So like it isn't even like I don't want this to be true. So I don't want to tell the truth because I don't want people to be like, oh, you're a bad person or you're going to hell or whatever. And that lie, like I feel like I kind of grew up both understanding that lying was wrong and then feeling like some lies are absolutely necessary for your protection.
Yeah. I feel like for me, the reason I didn't say, I mean, yes, people will always be like, do you, I don't remember being asked do I like boys as a kid, but like, I feel like for me, it wasn't I didn't know what I liked. So I didn't it wasn't like I was lying or telling the truth. I did not know what I was attracted to at a point, like, because like I mentioned before, you're ingrained to like women. So I just knew I didn't like them as much as I was supposed to. Didn't mean that I wasn't into women, if that makes sense. So for me, I was like, I don't think that I'm lying. I don't know what it is. But when I started to get older and people started to ask, was I gay? It was because I would hear external conversations about what it was to be queer.
Yeah.
So it was like, oh, girl, I don't want to be that. So I'm going to lie. I'm not going to tell the truth. Well, gay, you always know a gay man is gay. If they'd be like, do you like girls? You like, I like me or I like people. Like a straight man would never be like, no, I like women. Us that was kids. Oh, that sounds like a complicated question, or that sounds like I like to hang by myself. No, boy, you like boys. So you didn't lie. You just was like, I don't know what to say, but it's the fear.
Well, I just think it's really interesting that like we hold space in our brains to prioritize truth and to see it as a value, but then to actively like avoid it oftentimes, or to intentionally lie to people in order to protect ourselves. And I'm sure this is something that human beings have to do quite often. We see examples of it all the time where like a lie was the difference between someone like dying and not dying, or like being put in a stressful situation or whatever. But I'm curious if there's a long-term effect in that. Like, what? So let me ask this, because this question just popped up for me. When you were telling a lie throughout your life, whenever you've lied, did you have to believe that lie to tell it, or are you able to just say it?
So here's the thing. I will say twofold. there's been a moment in my life where I was able to just lie on the cuff, just tell a lie and not even process that I lied. It was just a muscle memory.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there has been moments where I will be transparent that I've told a lie and made myself believe that that was a lie. Like it was, no, there was a truth. Like, yes, my sister did hit me. She never fucking put her hands on you. But those moments, like nothing to the point of like, anything drastic, of course, like not believing in something happened to me, like, whatever the case may be. But there has been moments where it's like I've had to, this is the lie for like safety as well. And I think for me, the struggle, sometimes I forget that I lied. So that's the thing.
Yeah.
I can't keep the lie going if I forgot what I lied about.
Well, people say you tell one lie, you gotta tell like 10 more to cover up that one.
Because you're telling a story. That's what it is. You're telling a story. Like, you said you was at the mall yesterday. I was at the mall after I went to the movies. Yeah. It's just like, what the fuck is the... I think it's naturally you tell the truth because it makes more sense. When you lie, you're adding more to a story that doesn't make sense. So now it's just like...
Well, people often say that like when you like for habitual liars, it gets to a point where they like skew their perception of reality is skewed. That you've told so many lies and you had to tell so many that you almost like you create this world in your head, or even this external world for other people to believe, and it requires building a new system of truths. Like they're untruths, of course, but like they are truths in this world and this reality. And I think like I agree that for the habitual liars I've met, it does seem that they exist, like they're delusional. They are delusional and they exist in a different reality.
Yeah.
And go ahead.
No, I mean, I have a prime example of me doing it. So I was getting to know this guy, and I noticed without even like, I was doom scrolling on social media, and not on social media, on the dating apps, and I seen him pop up. And on Jack, I'll be honest, what it was, Jack, you can see when they see your story. If it shows you when they viewed it, but my page was hidden, so I didn't think that he would have saw it because my page is hidden. But if you go to the person's page, bitch, it will show that you look. Now, if you don't, so the next day he hits me up and was like, "Hey, I saw you saw my page." I go right into like defense. I'm like, "Oh, my friend sent me your page. That wasn't me," because I ultimately was embarrassed, and I didn't want him to think that I was like stalking him. So I made up this lie, and I kind of was going with it. I was like, "Oh yeah, my friends, they was trying to protect me and stuff like that." And then I started to be like, this was a needless lie. But it was because I didn't know how he was going to respond, because I wanted him to like me. I didn't know if he was going to respond like, this nigga is crazy. So then I told the lie, and I felt uncomfortable with it, because for me, it was going to eat me up, because I was going to have to continue with this eventually. So eventually I was like, "Hey, I'm going to just let you know what I told you was not true."
Oh, wow. You copped to it.
I did. It was like 2 days later, though.
Okay.
But it was also because I sensed he had disconnected, but I don't know why, but it was my gut reaction. Like, maybe it could have been something different. So I immediately told him, I was like, you know what? I was embarrassed. I was not doing it. Like, I literally was, but at that point I had already lied. So he was like, "What else will you lie about? That was very minor."
See
so
how
for
that
me,
happens?
yeah. So me, I was like, "No, you don't even, it's because you don't know me." And like, I was afraid, and it was like a whole thing. But needless to say, like, I do believe if you do lie, you can come back from it and tell the truth, but it depends on how deep you are in it. And I think lying is okay if it is for like a mood of survival. Now, if it's just a needless lie, like if somebody be like, "Oh, did you, brush your teeth today and bitch, your breath really stinks?" It's like, that's a needless lie.
If it is possible that that building a habit of lying can skew your perception of reality, and that we are saying it is acceptable to lie when it means your protection, or that you are doing so to survive, what does that mean for Black people in America when we're often put in positions of survival? We're often in survival mode. And I mean, yeah, people who are fighting for their needs often are required to then do things that are not honest, whether that
Mm-hmm.
be like, because I mean, theft is a form of dishonesty. You're taking something that doesn't belong to you and probably passing it off as if it does, right? Or that leads to like people scamming. Like I think of like homeless queer kids like having to like scam their way into situations so that they can eat or so that they have a place to stay, right? Like telling lies so that they can actually get their basic needs met. Actually, that makes me think of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? So like if a person has their basic needs, their food and their shelter taken care of, right, they're able to reach the next level. We've talked about Maslow's hierarchy of needs before, haven't we?
Let's do a refresher. I don't recall.
So you start with physiological needs, then it's safety, then it's belonging and love, then it's esteem, then it's cognitive, and then it's like self actualization. So your physiological needs are food, water, warmth, rest. Safety needs, security, safety.
Mm-hmm.
Belongingness and love needs are intimate relationships, friends. Esteem needs, prestige and feeling of accomplishment, right? And then your last one is self actualization, which is achieving one's full potential, including creative activities.
Mm-hmm.
So we're saying that people often lie to protect themselves, right? So
Yeah.
people are lying. I'm saying that people could start lying to get food, to get water, to get warmth and rest. And now we're also saying that people might lie to maintain safety and security, right?
Yeah.
So if you're starting out with a foundation of lies, how does that then affect your intimate relationships and your relationships with your friends, right? And your belongingness and your love needs are based on a series of untruths.
Right.
How does that affect your development moving forward? Once we get to esteem needs, your feeling of prestige and of accomplishment, would you start a habit of building your accomplishments and your self-esteem on a series of lies? Is there a possibility that being put in a situation where your relationship with truth is being skewed so often that sets a trend for you in your life?
Yeah. My first question is that you also have to understand, you have to be curious about why is this person lying or what
Yeah.
makes this person want to lie about it?
Yeah.
Like, is it because they are, a habitual liar? Is it because they're in constant fear of rejection?
Exactly.
Are they
Exactly.
yeah, you have to get to the root of it, because if it's because this person is in constant fear of rejection, then I was like, okay, we need to like maybe work on, creating a space where this person will no longer fear that. Now, if a person is naturally just lying just because they don't like to tell the truth, which sometimes is like, girl, that's deranged, then that's a conversation of like
Sociopathic.
a sociopathic person is not needed to detach, because you can't even give a validity to why you just lied. There's not really that.
Well, because I'm thinking, right? So the reason that this even is relevant to me is because, I've talked a lot about how I was really curious in my childhood. In tandem with that, I was always telling truths. Like I was speaking my observational truth. And both of those things got me into a lot of trouble. And so, like I've said before, that I've had to sort of condition myself not to do that, not to speak truths as they come to me, or
Yeah.
because of the sort of navigating the earlier parts of my life through not being honest about my attraction to the same sex, there had to be these sort of nuances to the way I saw the world, because I don't like lying. I do not like to
Yeah.
tell lies.
Same. Yeah.
So those lies had to make sense in my head for
Yeah.
those first like 18 years of my life, where it's like, I need to make this true. I can't
Yeah.
just tell a lie and then do the exact opposite. That's just not how I'm designed. So like when I
Yeah.
was like, yeah, I'm straight, that meant that I dated girls, and like I would try to, because there was this internal desire, obviously this innate desire to interact with boys. I would try to start that with intimate relationships with boys, and then would like do that back and forth that a lot of DL men do, where I'm like, oh, I can't do this anymore. And this is my teen years. And so I feel like I was sort of quelling this innate nature to be myself. I'm like, you can't do that. You have to do something that's different. And I feel like it caused a disconnect for me in my ability to trust my instincts.
Yeah. I mean, I think that is where we struggle with at times, is to trust your gut in certain spaces. I mean, it's also because we have not always built a strong support system within ourselves.
Mm.
So you trusting your gut is like, how can I trust that when I don't trust myself?
Exactly. Exactly.
For me, I can give personal examples because I've vocally said it probably on this podcast is sometimes I don't trust my own instincts. And that also goes from your childhood and trauma. And if you told the truth, you got in trouble. If you lied, you got in trouble. So there was like, where is the positive in it? Where is the healthy outcome when you're seeing it only have ramifications whether you tell the truth or lie? And I think for me, it came from I didn't have a support system where, or a space I felt that it was okay to explore curiosity or explore myself or ask questions because it was, you're supposed to know these things already. Do as I say, not as I do. Don't talk back. So it was a space of like, it came from like this fear of like, I did not get this like development as a child. So now I'm, as an adult and somebody is like, trust your gut. Do you want to date this person or not? I don't know what my gut is saying because my gut is so conflicted with what is right because you've never practiced those type of moments with just listening to yourself and being okay with it.
It requires an authenticity. In order for you to trust your gut, you have to have a practice of authenticity.
And we
That's
led,
what I think I was missing.
and also as queer men, we've led lies at a point.
And
So,
not all of us, right? Because some of us are much better at this, but I think there is a practice of like, okay, so because I think something we probably skipped a step in that, like, truth is not universal. Like, what actually, how do we define truth, right? So you have your truth and the way that you see the world, and your experiences and your relationships are going to shape how you see the world. And then I have my truth, right? There's a relativity to it, and somewhere in the middle is whatever possible universal truth that there is. So maybe a liar is telling their version of the truth.
The liar is telling their version of the truth, bitch. But it's also like, it gets to the point of just like, it's a complicated thing because at the end of the day, you don't know what somebody's lying about until you know the truth. I won't know.
Which truth are we talking about there? Like the facts?
The facts. That's what I'm saying. The facts, because that's what people can go to is facts, or something that you can show proof, show evidence. That's why in court, if you don't have facts, bitch, you could be telling the truth, but if you don't have facts,
the court is a place where the truth might not always like prevail. Like you just got to be able to convince people that the facts can tell this story, and this is the most like believable one, or this is the one that you should believe. Our relation, I also wonder too. Then, the courts, black people, the court system.
We are fucked.
Like, how does white supremacy affect our relationship with truth and the world around us, right? So like you think about like is what's it called? Code switching. Is code switching us telling our versions of our truth? Are we being our authentic selves when we're code switching? Does code switching require us to ignore existential truths or things that we have been taught? Like, so we have these cultural truths, a lot of us have these cultural experiences that we share just because we are descendants of slaves, right? And ways that we're taught to build the spiritual intuition or the spiritual knowledge that will lead to our well-being, or supposed to lead to our well-being and our safety. And if we're constantly negotiating that in these white spaces, could that affect the way that we see ourselves authentically? And could that have some relationship on our ability to intuit?
Yeah. I mean, like I've mentioned before, is we couldn't be authentically ourselves during slavery, during the Jim Crow era. We had to lie to stay alive. So you don't trust certain things. You don't trust the police because the system was built around them. When you would literally tell the truth, you still would die. You would literally like, I did not touch this woman. Well, these people are saying you did. So you have it's that mindset of like, we were built on a system full of lies. We were built on a system full of consequences, even if we told the truth. So I think naturally in the Black community, we when you don't create trust, you don't have a space where you can like be truthful. I don't trust you, so I'm not going to tell you the truth because I don't know what you're going to do with the truth. So I'm not going to trust you. And even with your gut, it's like, yes, trust your gut, but like, what has that gotten us historically?
You know, it's really interesting as I think about how like I've kind of stopped. I've started to challenge myself to tell more what I would personally call radical truths in my
Yeah.
life since I moved to New Orleans. I feel like I did a lot of code switching in Maryland and in DC.
Yeah.
And I moved here and I started challenging myself to tell my little truths
Yeah.
in areas where I wouldn't. So one of the best examples I have is like I hate it when white people ask me to take pictures for them. It's important for me to make sure that that service is something that's coming from me and like altruistically and not some sort of remnant of me doing service for them as a black person doing
Yeah.
one for a white person. Okay, like it's
Yeah.
important for me to know that that's not what's happening here. And so part of my challenge to myself was if you want to say no to something, say no.
Yeah.
And I remember these white people were like, excuse me, can you take a picture for us? I had just gotten off of work in the service industry and I was like, I don't really want to do this. And I was like, if you say yes to doing this, that's a form of social slavery. You're going to be doing this work for these white
Yeah.
people and you don't want to, so don't do it. And I was just like, you know, I'd rather not.
Yeah.
And I remember her face being like, that's rude. And in my
Yeah,
mind, I was like,
bitch. It is. Let's move on.
and I felt so good. I was like, yeah, you didn't want to do it and you didn't do it. Like you told your
Yeah.
truth and you move forward. And I was like, I'm going to do that more often. And I started to notice that the more I did that in practice, the more I would start to like listen to my
Yeah.
internal. And I was like,
Yeah.
I felt like a correlation. It seemed to me like there was a correlation between listening to my inner voice and being able to perceive the world around me in a way that made me walk away feeling better about myself and not
Yeah.
like I'm constantly giving and not getting anything back and I don't
Yeah.
know how to make decisions now. I feel like I started a practice of like listening to the internal voice and that would then lead to positive results for me.
I do think that I agree with what you're saying. I think that in order for you to be able to trust your gut and your instinct, you do have to be transparent and also practice that mindset of, you know, embracing the cause and effects. You know, I think sometimes we are as afraid of what's going to happen afterwards, but it's at the end of the day.
Yeah.
I always tell people like, girl, you won't know until you do it. So like do it and then don't beat yourself up and be like, oh, I should have did this instead because like life goes on and like it won't work out. So I know for me with myself, when I had my like I didn't trust my gut or my intuition, I always would go back to like, okay, when you did trust it, what happened? Right? What did you do? What was the outcome? Was it good? Like, for example, when me deciding to leave my job, you know,
Yes.
I was afraid of leaving. I was like, I don't know if this is going to be a good job. It's like, well, these are why you're leaving. So this is what you're going to. So trusting your gut and knowing that like there are moments where if you lie, you trust your gut, the reason you lied is because there was a reason that you needed to lie because of like, you know, it's always that mindset of like my mindset is like you have to practice and create boundaries. Like we tell the truth to people, like we lie to people please as well. And sometimes like I don't want to people please. Like
Tell
I
yourself the
don't.
truth too.
Yeah, like oh, I like even my mind. Like I have a friend that they are always like when they don't want to go on a date with somebody or do something, they make up this elaborate thing. Which I know I told y'all this was going to be elaborating, but it's like oh, I got to make up, you know, that you got to pick me up from this. You know, I can't just. I'm like just say you don't want to go.
I don't want to
Like
go.
and then they're like, well, it's easier to lie because that doesn't hold weight allegedly than to tell the truth and then you feel the ramifications of like being like I'm just not that interested in you.
Yeah, but like releasing yourself from the obligation is helpful. Like there are some difficult truths that make our lives easier when we work through the discomfort of them.
But you also have to want to recognize it head on. People will usually detach something to a lie because it's detachable. It's not the truth. I could just easily throw that shit away because it was made up. Versus if I actually tell this person why I do not like them and they turn up and all that, is because they didn't like what I genuinely said. If that makes sense.
But I
Versus,
think that's the
yeah,
difficult truth is this person might not like who I am.
yeah.
The person. Okay.
You have to be okay with that. We have to be okay with that. But some people we are not. So we have make up this facade like let me act like I'm sick and then I can't answer the phone and then
So you spend the rest of your life doing that and having to lie to people to keep them liking you. That feels exhausting.
it
That
is
seems like
very
it would
much
be
exhausting, girl. That was my story. Hi, my name is Devery and
Oh.
I was someone who lied because I was afraid of my personal self. But no, in actuality, it was because we talk about it already. We have not built that. We have not built that self love. Because I
Yeah.
also want to detach. I know I talked about like the consequences with our life back in during like slavery and things like that, but I want to talk about like things that are like minuscule, like not like less present, and like I am not going to die. Right, hypothetically, I mean, I know unfortunately if you do tell somebody, with black women, if a man, sometimes if you say yes or no, they will, but not in those type of spaces. But like knowing that like it is okay to be honest and trust like this is not a good space for me, let me detach. I think
Mm.
being okay with that, but it's also like I said, it's a practice of muscle memory
It
and being able
is.
to put yourself in an uncomfortable space to see how you feel in it, so that you are able to be like, okay, I told the truth and I don't feel as bad.
Yes,
Okay.
that. So I think that's a part of the esteem building. We're on the same page here. I think that's a part of the esteem building. There is this really nice gratification you get when, after telling your truth,
So much weight is
you
off your shoulders.
and you're like, oh, and that my whole world didn't crash, or like, sure, this person doesn't like me, but I'm okay. And it's like,
Girl,
maybe this isn't,
yes.
maybe this is something I can start doing. And it's like, oh, look at me, I told the truth.
Yeah.
It's I always say we have to go back to like reparenting ourselves and like that inner child. Like, if you give yourself positive reinforcement for telling truths, I genuinely feel like you develop a really good relationship with the person you truly are at your
Yeah.
core.
You
And that's kind of, I think, can lead to
yeah.
having a good relationship with your intuition,
God.
your gut instincts.
Yeah. I think it's the first time when I said I'm gay, bitch, I didn't catch on fire. I was
Yeah.
like, oh.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, so it's not that bad. Like I think it's you're living authentically. I think it's just like, yeah, like I think it's because like with you telling all these lies, it's too much stress, it's too much worries. I think, with intrusive thoughts and like trusting your gut, I feel like with life, you do naturally just have to trust your gut and be okay with what the outcome is,
Hmm.
because life is full of uncertainties. There is no rule book to life. And I think that we are oftentimes trying to live by fear and a structure where this is what my parents did, this is how they succeeded, but my gut is telling me to go this way. I mean, as kids, we every time we deterred from a path that was not destined for us, we always got crucified for it.
Hmm.
We always got ramifications, not crucified. It was just always ramifications. Like, oh, my mom told me to be a doctor, but I actually grew up to be like a teacher. It was these negative connotations, but you trusted your gut. And like, we sometimes try to live for others. And I do want to go back into that, is because we're sometimes are living for somebody else's story instead of ours. So
Yeah.
like
Even
that
if it's our
truth,
parents.
yeah, living in your truth, trusting your gut. It's also being okay with like others silencing others as well. So I think we need to work on that to allow for our listeners and ourselves and just people in general to cancel out the noise, because it's always going to be noise. It's always going to have somebody have chatter. But if you believe what you did was okay, and you believe what you were leading forth with, your head should be held high. Like, okay, I lost out on this money, but like I'm happier now.
Yeah. And that happiness can exist outside of that. And so that, I think that's how it always often happens for me in my head when I'm equating, or when I'm looking at the relationship between white supremacy and my intuition, is that like, the reason I'm bringing it back here is because in this country, white supremacy is highly tied to capital and
Yeah.
the acquisition of power and money. Um, and I have found that there is space to be made for those of us who do not subscribe to white supremacist beliefs,
Yeah.
that we can still be well, we can still acquire wealth, that we can still find success and happiness while choosing to honor the deepest parts of ourselves that exist contrary to white supremacy and to the sort of hegemonic systems in this country. I think that like when I tell myself the truth, even the little ones, so those little truths can be as basic as like, I'm hungry right now and I need to go eat even though I'm doing my work. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm gonna stop working right now and go get a snack. I'm gonna eat, and then I'm like, oh, I feel better. My body feels good. I did something in service of my body that feels good. I'm gonna go back to work now.
Yeah.
Or something as simple as, I don't really want to do this thing with my friends today. I think I'd rather go on a walk. What often happens in my life is that walk means that I find something like a butterfly on the way that makes me feel good that day. Or maybe I'll run into a different kind of friend who offers to take me to the pool, and they're like, oh, I'll pay for your entry. And suddenly I'm having this really relaxing day because I followed my
My
gut and
guts.
just like I told my
I
truth,
think,
and it led to
yeah.
this like unexpected joy. And there's like this genuine gratification, like this real reward at the other
Yeah.
end so often that makes me feel like I should do this more often, and I should lean into my own desires and my own personal truths as a habit of making a freer life for me, that I'm not bound by telling lies to fit in. I'm not bound by ignoring my own
Yeah.
personal, physical, spiritual, and emotional truths in
Yeah.
service of someone else. Because if I have to tell myself a lie about those things, then they're probably actually not good for me.
Yeah. I think what I want us and our listeners, also individuals who struggle with trusting your gut, is to always, after you make a decision, think of one positive thing that came from it.
Yeah.
I think that we need to practice, because
Come
we
on, actionable item.
choose action. Yes, yes. We need to critically think about, okay, what are some things? I know I can think about the immediate negative things of making this decision and trusting my gut, right? We are easily able to, because what is more visible?
Yeah.
But what we need to challenge ourselves with is actually looking at it and saying, what did go right? That's really important, because it's practicing that muscle of
Yes.
reshaping or reshifting your approach to your gut and your truth, because we are now not associating it with negative connotations.
I love that. I love that idea of conditioning yourself to be more authentic by exploring the positive possibilities instead of leaning into the negative ones and creating anxiety. And I
Yeah.
mean, a lot of us have that experience. Like, we're used to, like, these are all the things that could happen if I tell the truth.
Yeah.
Explore the other side.
Yeah, it was because when we were as a grown up, right, your positives weren't usually always highlighted.
Yeah.
It was always when you did something wrong. Your name was only called when you were bad. It wasn't, it wasn't because we were practiced to be like, granted, there are certain spaces where like the accomplishments do come, but like you're usually like, for me, I grew up, I did it when I was expected to always do well. So there was no congratulations for when I did well. It was always when I did something wrong. So it was that juxtaposition of, okay, I know that I am doing something wrong because my name is associated with it. It was like I wasn't really getting that like affirmations from like being great, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
So I think it's also going back into conditioning ourselves to really go back to, when did you really not trust your gut? Like when trusting yourself make you feel this way?
Yeah.
And then B, like that's why with the part where I always want, that's why when our listeners like, what brought you joy? Because there is something in your day that has brought you joy.
Yeah.
Regardless if, like, for example, it's because bitch I woke up. Like that is simple. That should have brought you joy. Because some people unfortunately were not able to wake up. Or, you know what? I got to see that cat that I've missed. I haven't seen. It's just like practicing it, because then we just be like, it wasn't that bad. We need to tell ourselves it's not that bad.
I want to share a think piece before we close, that as because we've been talking about the gut a lot in this conversation about like the intuition, and there's two things I wanted to say. The first one is, it's this article by the Harvard Business Review, and so they're basically talking about why the gut is associated with intuition. And there are like two parts I wanted to read. Intuition is like a muscle. It can be strengthened with intentional practice. And you should learn to discern gut feeling from fear. Fear tends to be accompanied by bodily sensations of constricting or minimizing. You may feel tense, panicky, or desperate. That's like anxiety. And it has a pushing energy, as if you're trying to force something or selecting an option because you want to avoid a threat, rejection, or punishment. Fear also tends to be dominated by self-critical thoughts that urge you to hide, conform, or compromise yourself. Intuition, on the other hand, has pulling energy. It's as if your choice is moving you toward your best interest, even if that means pursuing a risk or moving more slowly than others. And it usually is accompanied by a feeling of excitement, anticipation, ease, and contentment. Physically, gut feelings tend to cause your body to relax. With intuition, your inner voice is more grounded and wise, like a good mentor.
Yes, when you tell the truth, you like, I feel better now.
That was from How to Stop Overthinking and Start Trusting Your Gut. So I think that's sort of what we've been trying to get through to today, a practice of like listening to what your inner voice is saying outside of these consequences, outside of the fear of rejection or punishment, and actually listening to what your body is saying to you first. I always say start with the body check-in, and then like if we're looking for a feeling of contentment and release, what does your brain say will lead to that?
Yeah, check in internally before you check in externally. Also, when your body is telling you yes, your mind is telling you no, it's because you want that dick.
Oh my God.
Girl, take it. I was like,
I will say I've been listening to my body, and when it comes to my sex life, and I'm very happy.
And you feel good, right? And you feel good. Now it'd be different if you didn't, since we have to,
no guilt. I'm feeling very empowered in my sex life today, and I am absolutely listening to my intuition and my gut about the decisions I've been making sexually.
Yes, 100%. We have to. It's also what I tell people is be present and and practice gratitude.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you have to do in order for you to be able to trust your gut and trust the truth, is to be grateful and to, be present. Like, I can't be trying to think about the future right now. Like, let me be in this moment and I'll deal with whatever comes up with afterwards. And it's also just please silence the noise and just listen to you. Like, if you don't want to take the opportunity, if you don't want to date this, if you don't want to, you don't have to do it. And nobody should force you. You shouldn't force yourself. This, all of those things. So I think it's definitely a work in progress, but hopefully some of the tools that we mentioned and some of the things that we discussed are some takeaways for anybody that is listening.
Yeah.
Because we definitely do it.
My final words are that perhaps if we get to a point where we're consistently and radically telling our own personal truths, especially the difficult ones, we will be able to build confidence and security in our ability to accurately perceive and analyze the world around us as in relation to our inner world, and develop our intuition, and perhaps that can ultimately lead to our freedom.
Yeah, I mean, it can, and it shall, and it will. Thank you. First of all, Derwin, I love you, sister.
I love you too.
So much. Even this pink shirt you got on, bodybuilder. No, I think this is a great topic. And I also appreciate what you always bring to the space. Thank you, sister.
Journey to wellness.
Yes. We are wrapping up the show, everyone. Thank you all for listening. Like we always mention, like, comment, subscribe to the show. If you'd like to continue the conversation with me, you all can hit me up on Instagram, Twitter, and all of my social medias at _Lord Every. That is _LORDEVERY.
And you guys know you can find me on Instagram at Derwin King. That's DERWINKING. And on Twitter at Free Negro. That's FREENEGREAUX.
And if you all would like to continue the conversation on our Instagram, our podcast social media, you can hit us up at That Black Boy Joy Pod on Instagram, on Twitter at That Black Boy Joy Podcast, or That Black Boy Joy. I can't think on the top of my head right now. If you would like to write into us, you can hit us up at That Black Boy Joy Podcast at gmail.com. You also can watch our full videos on Spotify and also on YouTube at That Black Boy Joy. And again, we are so grateful that you are tuning in and supporting us. And like we always say, please be so in love with who you are. Bye. Okay. Hey! I'm talking about the black